If you like Shalimar, then you will love the fragrances that I have chosen for this list. Shalimar is an old fragrance. It came out in 1925. Old. So there are some also old fragrances that are similar, but also a few modern options as well. So I'm going to start with probably the most similar that you can get. This is Emerald from Coty. Most people have not heard of this, or have not heard of it in a long time, because it is kind of you'll find it in the drugstore, probably on the bottom shelf where no one wants to even look at it because it's been forgotten. This came out in 1921, and when it came out, it was a huge, huge success. French perfume. It was huge. Even in the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was still a big deal. Only in more recent years, it kind of fell out of favor, and now no one knows about it. The thing about this, it was actually the inspiration behind the development of Shalimar. So chances are, if this wasn't made first, Shalimar probably wouldn't even exist. This was arguably the first Oriental fragrance that was created, at least by the French, and was also a huge success, like I said. Amber fragrance with some wood notes, some citrus. It doesn't have the incense notes that Shalimar has, but it's still super similar. It has the same opening. The wood notes are identical. The citrus notes are identical. It's extremely similar. Main difference: this is much, much weaker than Shalimar. This is an eau de cologne, so it's a cologne compared to, say, an eau de parfum, which is a much stronger concentration. Plus, this used to be stronger, I believe, but it's just been watered down. Even the color, this is a very light green. The original color from the 20s, the 30s, was an emerald dark green. So, they kind of skimped on what this used to be. But if you want something similar to Shalimar, this is the closest you're going to get. You'll just have to put way more on because it is pretty weak, but still smells really, really good. Plus, it's a fraction of the price. It's like $20, $18, pretty cheap. Then, another pretty old fragrance. This is from 1932, Taboo by Dana. This is also an incensey, spicy sort of fragrance. This is primarily different from Shalimar in that it's spicier, but it still has those incense notes. So, the thing here, it's because it is so spicy, it might not be for everyone. It is kind of like a bomb, and despite it being an eau de cologne, you would think it's pretty weak, but this is surprisingly strong. So you'd have to be, watch out for that. But if you can get past that, this is a good alternative to Shalimar because it still has that kind of tingly, spicy, smoky sort of thing going for it. And this is, like I said, Emerald is probably the closest, but this is a close second. And this is also pretty affordable. I think I got this for $20, so, if you don't want to spend $100 on Shalimar, you can go for this instead. It still smells, really good. It smells like a high quality fragrance. This as well has actually devolved into a drugstore fragrance, even though when it came out, it used to be this kind of hyper luxury, sort of seductive fragrance. But that's what 100 or so years does to perfume. Then the other one. This is Youth Dew, also an old fragrance by Estee Lauder. This came out in 1953, so technically younger than these other ones. This is kind of the intermediary between Shalimar and Taboo. This is also quite a very strong fragrance. It's even a little bit harsh when you first put it on, but when you give it a chance, you'll find that it kind of settles down into this very nice, musky, slightly powdery, kind of this classic feminine fragrance. You don't find fragrances like this anymore. This is, of its time. And It also has some very thick, heavy balsam notes, like tolu balsam, things like that. Lots of florals, especially rose, incense notes, of course, some spice notes like cloves and cinnamon. This has it all. This is really similar to Taboo, a bomb. So you don't have to put too much on to enjoy this because it is so strong. This is actually an eau de parfum, so quite a bit stronger, very long lasting. The main thing here, you're not going to get an opening citrus, a citrus opening as you would with Shalimar or Emerald. You're really here going to get more of a spicy floral opening. Then it kind of evolves into the incense and the balsam and things like that. So this is, you got to give it a time to evolve because it really changes as it sits on the skin. Then, besides this, I've got two modern options, both from Dior, Tobacco Color and Amber Nuit. So, Tobacco Color is the more similar of these two. It has tobacco notes, so you're gonna get this very smoky sort of fragrance, which of course is exactly what Shalimar is. I used to think that Shalimar was the smokiest fragrance ever, but this is a close contender, because of course it has tobacco in the name, it's gonna be smoky. So this is also a unisex fragrance. I forget what year it came out, but most likely in the last 10 years is when it came out, so very modern, a good option if you don't really care about the vintage options. Plus, despite being smoky, it's very smooth. It's not harsh, it's not gonna sting your eyes. This is definitely just a nice, pleasant option for both men and women, with just a touch of sweetness. You know, it's not intrusive, it's mostly smoky, but it has that slightly sweet smoothness, which makes it very, very pleasant. It's also extremely long-lasting, with great projection. And because it is nice and warm and smoky, it's really good for, you know, you want to feel cozy on a winter night or, you know, something along those lines. Then the last one I had is the Ambre Nuit, which means amber night in French. So this is super, super warm, probably warmer than Tobacco Color, despite not having a smoky note. This is primarily kind of a pink pepper, woody, slightly citrusy sort of fragrance. So that makes this, in my opinion at least, delicious. This is in my top 5 favorite fragrances because it is so good. Its performance is great, you know, it has the great longevity and projection and sillage and all that. But just the smell alone, even if it was the weakest fragrance in the world, I couldn't do without it because this is just such a wonderful smelling fragrance. Similar to Shalimar in the fact that it does have that same warmth, that same spiciness, you know, an exotic nature to it. The main thing that differentiates it here is the lack of the incense note. But, you know, you could go without one note and it can still smell similar. And that's what I'm, you know, talking about here. And that similar warmth is very complimentary. It's very, you know, it's still good for cold weather, still good for the evening, still luxurious. And it's just a good modern alternative. So that is pretty much my list for fragrances that are similar to Shalimar. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that. If you have any opinions about these fragrances, you can always leave those down in the comment section below. If you liked the video, leave a like, maybe subscribe, and I make videos throughout the week, so stick around for those.